we were playing with Robbie Kuster. We also played with Mishka Stein, who at the time, I don't remember, I guess it was Robbie who introduced me to him. I really loved his bass playing as well. I did many duo gigs with him. Always was a real pleasure to work with him. They were so great, and what I liked about Mishka was that he wasn't really like a schooled guy like from McGill. He just, I think he went to Vanier probably, but kind of like Caulder, who I don't think went to university studying music, but some of those guys are like my favorite players, and I think part of why I love their playing is because they didn't have their souls ripped out of them from going to school.
It is a unusual, unfortunate, not in every case, but it is something that happens to a lot of players, that there's something that gets lost in that process.
I agree. Yeah, that definitely happened to me. It's true. And
you feel that, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I feel like it took me a long time to get whatever that soul thing back.
I think there's, I've been thinking about that a lot, because I dislike my playing now much more than my old playing. Like if I listen back to old recordings, I'm like, shit, that sounded so much better. I think that I think it's good to not know things, so that there is still some mystery, and also.
Wait, are we talking about? We're talking about the same thing. Like, are you saying that?
I think so. Yeah.
Are you saying that it's better to not go to school? Because I think that's kind of what I'm saying.
Well, look, I'm not saying. I don't think universally it's better not to go to school. But I mean, I didn't, or I went for 1 year, But I think that I think that we need to find ways of maintaining excitement and mystery, and whether you go to school or not, you should still be. There should still be that element of not knowing, maybe it's less about school and more about just not, I don't know. I'm not sure what the answer is to that question.
Up until you stuttered and said, I don't know, I will say I could not have put it better than that. Yeah, I do agree with you. I think that even if you're in school, that sense of mystery, that sense of wonder, that sense of exploration and excitement needs to be maintained. And unfortunately, for me, it was lost a little bit in school. With that said, there were so many things that I learned that were extremely valuable. I don't want to put it down, and I wouldn't want to discourage other people from going if it's truly something that they want to do.
Absolutely.
It's just that there's a caveat in there, and that's that be prepared to have a lot of your joy ripped away from you. And that doesn't mean that it's going.
That's an interesting way of putting it.
Yeah, just be prepared for it. Maybe if you're prepared for it, it won't happen, or it won't have the same effect when that joy is being stripped from you. But I do think that I don't know. I mean, I don't really regret going to school at all. I actually think that, like I said, I gained a lot of really, really valuable information and insight. But I also think that I could have navigated it quite a bit differently, and I don't know exactly how I could have prepared for it differently than I did. And I think that maybe
I was just going to say, either if there's something you could change, or like, would you have preferred not going to school, or like what how would you have approached it differently?
It's funny because I would have. No, I don't think I would have not gone to school, but I think that I was. And this is something that you and I have talked about a lot, and this is something that I think about a lot, which is it's so important for me to always work with younger musicians. It's really important for me from the perspective of like every single generation, every single younger musician is better than me. And so I just gotta keep myself on my toes by learning from the younger people. But also I feel like there's so much knowledge and wisdom that we have that needs to be imparted on them. I don't want to hoard knowledge and wisdom for myself. I'm constantly thinking of ways that I can share the little nuggets of, wisdom that I have with others, especially with those who are younger. And I think that it would have been really cool if I knew a lot of older musicians. I was very, very fortunate to be playing with a lot of older musicians and be brought under the wings of many of them. funny enough, a lot of those older musicians that I knew weren't necessarily musicians who went to school, so they didn't prepare me for that. Like, be prepared when you're in school. This is what it's going to be like. Had I met a bunch of older cats who did go to school, maybe they would have said that to me, and maybe that would have been nice. And I'm not saying, man, where were all those people? Why weren't they telling me how to prepare myself? I don't want to put this on anyone else, but at the same time, I think that maybe I could have done differently. It could have been seeking more varied perspectives on the older musicians in Montreal at that time, just to sort of be more prepared for what it would be like being school. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, yeah, so you wouldn't undo it. I always kind of regret not having done school or not having spent like 4 years, really focusing on music. It doesn't necessarily have to be school, but just not spending that time, But I don't think I don't think school is bad. But we gotta
school is cool.
Find a way of
school is kind of cool.
Navigating school is cool. Yeah, your moms, you still be curious, and that's I think really that's the main thing. Answering questions answer you naturally, not curiosity, but removes the mystery. Naturally, we need to find mysteries, and we need to still at least appear to be surprised, regardless of whether we're actually surprised. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'm a naturally curious person. I'm constantly looking for new information to absorb. I'm constantly trying to find new ways of doing things or be enlightened for, a number of subjects. I don't think the curiosity has been lost, and I think if anything, school has really helped me to sharpen my critical thinking, let's say, and it's also really helped me to get like a primer on a lot of different subjects as well. Like some of my greatest memories of undergrad, for instance, were courses that I have a minor degree in Canadian studies, and I really developed a strong interest in Canadian law, Canadian history, issues of social justice and things like that. I mean, stuff that I was probably somewhat interested in already before university, but I got a good primer on a lot of subjects. Even in music, even though I was there for performance, some of my best teachers, I can think of Christopher Smith, Joe Sullivan. These are people who were teaching me not on my private instrument, on my main instrument, but teaching me composition and arranging. And those are skills that I use to this day, that actually that are part of my bread and butter. Some of my the composition skills, the arranging skills, are things that actually make me more money than playing gigs do sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah. We got to keep learning. That's, I think, really just the thing at the end of your mom also asking question marks Greg Clayton. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit. Oh, yeah.
I mean, look, I was really lucky to have the private teachers that I had as well. There's nothing, I can't say anything negative about those guys. Right. I had Greg Clayton as a teacher for a while. I really, really liked studying with him. I also took private lessons with John Geary for many years. He and I are still friends to this day. We write back and forth with each other, emails, even though he no longer lives in Montreal. I no longer live there either. But yeah, we're in touch. He was the guy who turned me on to 7th Street Guitar. I was really fortunate to have great mentors. And I also studied privately with Frank Lozano, even though I'm not a sax player. I felt like there was a lot that I could learn from him. He's really into new music. He's into free jazz. I'm not into that very much at all, but I was always really, really curious about how the fuck to play like free music and how to apply those principles of just thinking freely on your instrument. I always felt so stuck on my instrument and so confined to all the like technical stuff that I had learned. And I wanted to find ways of just getting outside of my head like that. And I thought, man, who better to study with than Frank? Frank is such a philosophical guy, such a fun, deep thinker, and it was really awesome studying with him as well. So actually, yeah, I mean, I had great private teachers. I had great arranging teachers. I mean, there were a few bad apples inside. There really were. Sure. There were quite a few bad apples, actually, in terms of the teachers. But at the same time, I was lucky to still have some really great teachers within that too.